Well, welcome back to another episode of LorcanaChats. I'm your host, Chris, aka Questing for Lore. And in today's episode, I'm joined by Lorcana competitive player, budding content creator, and clinical psychologist, Josh, otherwise known as Dr. Lore. He and I focus on something that's been pretty common in any kind of competitive community, including TCGs: burnout. We had a great conversation about what burnout is, what can lead to it, and some tips on how to cope and how to move forward when it does happen. Sound interesting? Let's get to it. So, given the nature of the conversations in this episode, the following disclaimer applies. Information provided in this video is for educational purposes only and not intended as medical or professional advice. Well, hey Josh, how's it going?
Good and yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's about halfway through the week and it's been pretty good. So, you know,
Cannot complain here as well. It's been a lovely week.
good, good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and just have a little chat about stuff. I put out the bat signal on Twitter the other day about looking for somebody to talk with about a topic that I think is going to be pretty useful to hear about. I think for a lot of people in this community. So, and just in general, I mean, honestly, we all deal with it. You know, burnout is a real problem. So. Um, but before we get to that, I do want to find out a little bit about you and kind of your origin story, I guess. So tell me a little bit about yourself, how you got, came to Lorcana. Have you played any other TCGs? All that kind of good stuff.
Definitely. No previous TCG experience. I actually always wanted to growing up, but grew up in a economic situation where the expensive cardboard was expensive.
Yep.
So from there, just all the schooling, ended up getting my doctorate degree. After that, I was looking for some hobbies to pick up.
Hmm.
I did about 5 to 6 years of pretty heavy Star Wars toy collecting, which I still have quite
Nice.
an extensive Star Wars toy collection. Then that got to a place where the things I needed to buy were farther and few between. And I was like, well, not really going to conventions, not really doing like the social aspect of that hobby as much because for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And then like I was sitting here, I was like, man, I really want a new hobby, something social. And I was like, oh, I always wanted to play Magic. Like I always want to play Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to go out and get a commander starter deck and then just learn how to play Magic with all of the confidence of a noob that has no idea what they're doing.
It's like, yeah, this will be perfect. What could go wrong? Yeah.
Easy peasy. I'll just pick up
Yeah.
cards and play.
Yeah.
So I picked up a Lord of the Rings starter deck. And struggled for like 2 weeks at my local game store,
Mm.
LGS around me, and someone just was like, in a very loving way, by the way, was like, maybe this isn't the one for you to jump into with this little Lorcana thing starting in like 2 weeks. That
Oh,
might be right up your alley.
at least they were constructive about it. It wasn't just like shutting it down, you know?
They literally worded it in almost the best way they possibly could. It's just like,
Nice.
maybe this
Nice.
isn't for you. And I was like, hey, I get it. So um I did what everyone else did. I jumped online, reached like, oh, it's Disney. Like I like Disney. I have two
Mhm.
kids. Like I do a ton of Disney based stuff. We go to Disney all the time. So I was like, oh, I'm in. And then it was like, where can I find this stuff? And so that became the hunt. I was able to get a hold of my like 3 starter decks. That's about it. And
Okay.
actually learn how to play at my dinner table with my family. And
Nice.
they kind of fell off wanting to go to like an LGS and play. And I was like, I think I want to take that next leap. Which is a nerve-wracking leap to take. I do specifically remember sitting in my car, and and I talk about this in some of the videos I have out there, sitting in my car with my own anxiety, being like, I'm walking this environment, like no one's going to talk to me, no one's going to engage with me. I'm going to sit there by myself, and it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
And what I had the total opposite experience, but yeah, that's how I kind of got into Lorcana, and then since then it was just like casual play into more competitive play into kind of like inside of the competitive play realm, noticing a few things like, as a psychologist, really noticing the mental health aspect of it, also working pretty heavily inside of some athletic organizations. I did a decade in college counseling, so I worked directly with sports teams on peak performance, on kind of mental mindsets, on pre-game, during game, post-game, mental health based activities. Just seeing the overlay and seeing like, wow, okay, this is a great opportunity to give people some education on how to manage those emotions, how to kind of bring a holistic wellness perspective into the community, and maybe like, help people, play at their top level, or even if you're not looking to play at your top level, just, be your top level self kind of thing.
Yep. So do you consider yourself more of a competitive player these days, or are you still kind of balanced between the two? Just kind of depends on what you feel like.
Ask me week by week. I'll tell you that one week, we're competitive, and one week, like, okay, we're here to set some small goals and really knock this out of the park. I did top my first like larger event in Orlando, 2K. I was actually in first place after Top Cut, and then fumbled the bag per se, and ended up getting fifth. But it was a great experience. It was the first kind of like bigger tournament that I placed in. So taking that energy and kind of running with that, moving on to the DLC coming up.
Nice. So are you going to Milwaukee?
Yeah, I'll be in Milwaukee. Really excited for that experience. Got super lucky on just literally happened to look at my phone and the Discord and saw the link pop up and hop over. I got super lucky, and I'm grateful I was able to do that, because unfortunately not a lot of people were. So
Yeah, it was a rough situation. I mean, it was. I don't know. We won't get into that. That was a whole whole thing. I had a whole conversation about that with some other people back when it actually happened. So, but yeah, no. I mean, I'm glad that they have the DLC still going. That they've announced all the ones for the for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I do hope that it's something where more people can kind of get in there and get involved in. I mean, it's one thing to play at like an LGS, right?
mm-hmm.
You have that certain kind of environment around you, but it's a whole different like scale at a DLC, and to see that and see that many people all that love the same game that you love,
Mm-hmm.
it's like this huge deal. So
it's one of like the largest kind of coming together. It's like the con of our hobby, and I think it's.
mhm.
I remember I went to the one over. I was able to catch the one in Washington last year,
Hmm.
and that was walking in and seeing so many people was almost overwhelming. But so you're right,
Yep.
like that experience. I mean, I'm going to say the pipeline worked. How Ravensburger actually laid it out worked, because I literally went from, oh, I might want to be competitive. Let's try out a set championship, to, oh, I like that. That was fun. Let's take it to the next level. So like, their hats off to the the Ravensburger kind of structure, because it worked for me at least.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of people, because Lorcana is the first TCG for a lot of the people that I
Yeah.
talk to, and just a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people in the community. And it's coming to a game, a different kind of game than you may have played before, a different
Mm-hmm.
kind of community, a different kind of like setup. I was the same way. I went to Atlanta, and
Okay.
it was just like staggering for somebody who had never been to, to something quite that large for, one particular game.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to like conferences and, and trade shows and stuff like that, but that's different. You're not really
Right.
there for the same reason. Um, so yeah, well, cool. I'm gonna be there too in Milwaukee, so
Awesome.
we'll have to say hi to each other while we're there. But
Well, knowing how this the my luck, we'll be seated together round one. So,
probably and be like, oh hey, how's it going?
oh hey,
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, okay. So we've talked a little bit about some of the content stuff that you make. So now let's see. So is it that you have stuff under the Dr. Lore and the podcast, or is that kind of mixed together, or it's kind of a little blurry to me?
it's a little Venn diagram. We'll go
Okay.
there. It
Okay.
started with the Dr. Lore TCG on kind of all socials, including YouTube.
Hmm.
Some of the older YouTube stuff is a little more dry and more like college lectury. I'm pivoting and upgrading my my delivery to that. And that kind of snowballed into now the podcast and really shooting some episodes. Realizing that this could be a great opportunity to have a discussion, especially with someone that is more seasoned in the community, and me being kind of the person that kind of can come with a little bit of perspective regarding mental health and tips and strategies to improve our performance, and then more just educational pieces on like things that could be helpful for individuals that might be struggling with some emotional challenges. Again, not getting that like clinical advice, but just really like some overall like strategy people could try out, depending on like their needs and things of that nature. So we kind of morphed it into, I still kind of do a little bit of both. I'm about to put out another video on Thursday regarding kind of our pregame ritual, what that looks like. So that'll be coming out on Thursday of this week. And then again, we've shot 4 or 5 episodes of Decked Out and Dialed In, which is the podcast, and we're going to start rolling those out pretty quickly, barring any editing snafus, because again, I think we're both pretty new to the editing game. So
Yeah.
so that's kind of how it kind of come together is one is kind of more purely educational, and the other one is more kind of experiential, conversational. And I think that balance is working for us right now.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I look forward to the episodes coming out. You've got the little teaser video on there right now, but yeah, you and your host or your co-host, Stefan Delgado. How did y'all meet up? Was it just kind of, are y'all local to each other, or is it?
Somewhat local. He's down in Miami. I'm in Tampa.
Okay.
We actually, funny, R&B actually kind of originally connected us, because R&B's in my local area. I'm friends with him. We chat occasionally. I guess they were talking about mental health when he was down at Southside Gaming for an event. And he was like, "Oh, I got someone you should meet." And then we got connected on X through, I think someone just, I think he posted something and someone tagged me in it. And that's how we got connected. And we just kind of got chatting about the community and like the mental side of the community, and really trying to like create that great environment for everyone to kind of thrive and survive. Not just survive, but thrive. And we kind of really hit it off on that part, and really wanted to create something that could be impactful to not just even Lorcana, just like the TCG community as a whole. So that's kind of how that kind of have morphed. So yeah, it would be confusing to see like because they kind of morphed into each other, but they still both exist. So
okay. All right. I mean, it makes sense. That's the way a lot of channels kind of start out. I've talked to a lot of people that, they started off doing one thing, and then after a while they were like, I don't really want to cover all of this stuff, or this is not what I want to do with my channel, or, and there's nothing saying it can't be, it can't evolve over time. So, so yeah, I look forward to it. I'm really interested. Obviously I wouldn't have had you on the show if I wasn't interested in the topic of, mental health, and especially as, how it relates to TCGs and, just games really in general, because it's the same kind of like pressure. You want to win, obviously, it's kind of the point of the game. So, it's got that similarity, but then you start like branching out into different things for different game types. So, but,
and and one thing I've been really pushing, and like, this is a sport. Like I was a Division II college football player, and I will tell you that this is the same feel that I felt playing that sport, playing here, just in a different dynamic, right? Those same principles of how kind of sports psychology and that approach to the game is transparent from your quote unquote traditional sport to like this tabletop card game. And I think, those principles stand true in both.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, so there was one topic that I do want to focus on a little bit more specifically. I think I feel like it's relevant, largely right now because Lorcana's kind of gotten over the hump, right? We've passed that, that first round of DLCs. The community's still growing. We're getting more DLCs and more CCQs and all the, all the different events that are coming up. So there's a lot of stress going around, right? And you laugh, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Um, but and the first DLC Milwaukee is 2 weeks away
Mhm.
ish. And so a lot of people are starting to feel that stress.
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of folks in the community that they're just, they're worried about their deck. They're worried about, the trip. They're worried about all this other stuff. And they're working and practicing with their deck. And, they can get to a certain point where they hit that potential level of burnout. And I know there's a lot of people out there right now that are feeling that way.
Mhm.
So I did want to get a chance to sit down and talk with you a little bit about it, and kind of get your perspective as a professional, mental health professional,
Yeah.
to kind of fill in some of the blanks and maybe help, provide some ways that people can think to help maybe reduce it and, keep from getting to that point, let's say.
Oh,
So,
100%. 100%.
but, um, but yeah, so, okay. So in, I guess, as technical terminology as you can define. So how would you define what burnout actually is?
So burnout is a state of exhaustion. It's what we would say chronic, not transient. So what that basically means is transient is things that come and go, versus
Mhm.
chronic means it's pretty stable. So so that's kind of the difference between kind of high levels of stress versus burnout. Is burnout kind of fades from that high level of stress that might be a transient, which I'll give a good example. Like the week leading up to a event, I'm on edge, but then I go to the event a little on edge, but after I'm done, it goes back to baseline. I'm feeling okay. I'm still liking the hobby. I'm still engaging in it. It's still fun for me.
Mhm.
Where burnout becomes more this chronic stage of emotional reactivity in a way that feels us to have kind of despair or hesitant to even participate with a hobby, and
Mhm.
almost becomes a little bit of a negative emotional response even engaging in the hobby, so or thinking about the hobby or participating in it. So really looking at one being like situational, where the other one's kind of just chronic along the way, and in how that kind of affects us emotionally and mentally, and can really kind of turn us towards that hobby or activity we're engaging, and turn us kind of away from it.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
I was like,
Um, what's that?
no, I was gonna say, is like and I think that that's just that's is that some of the things that you're hearing, is it that more
Mhm.
just like it's almost kind of become burdensome to practice and engage and even
Yeah.
play. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you hear, you get some of the teams like, R&B, Maelstrom and all them, and you hear about them practicing for these major events and they're playing thousands of games, and it's like, oh my gosh, these people are doing so much to try to get ready for these events,
Hmm.
and then you have people that are a little bit more of like, oh, I'm just kind of starting out on the competitive side. They
Hmm.
look at those people and they say, well, why can't I do that? I want to try to do that. I need that level of practice, and then they try to do that and it starts getting to be overwhelming.
Oh, 100%.
And then I hear the same thing from a lot of content creators as well. You get to a point where, like, not only are you playing the game and you're out there involved in the community, but also having the added pressure of making content, having to worry about, editing, like you were saying, some of the things that come along with it. It's a lot sometimes,
Oh yeah.
and it can be overwhelming.
Oh.
And I know, from personal experience, I know there's been times that I've just been like, all right, I'm done. I, I
Mhm.
think at some point everybody kind of has that feeling of, I just want to, like, toss all my cards or sell them all off, and I'm done with the game.
Hmm.
But it's interesting to see how a lot of them tend to kind of come back around after that,
Hmm.
that kind of that transient nature that you were talking about. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to hear kind of your perspective on, um, you know, what things can people do? What can they keep in mind? How can they keep from getting to the point of burnout? Specifically with the game, or with the community, or content creation, or since you're kind of branching into that area yourself.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's a great question, because in psychology, there's a few different perspectives on burnout, and there's a few different strategies. So I'll try to be as concise with them as possible in some of the suggestions. So like the first one really comes from like a place that they call self-determinants theory, which basically just means that like, we all are driven to our goals, but how we set goals and how we approach those things matter a lot to us for very specific reasons. It's kind of like our reward center of our brain kind of gets dinged, and when
Mm-hmm.
that reward center of our brain doesn't get dinged often because we might have extrinsic goals, and I'll talk about that in a second. What happens is we kind of become like, our brain does this like thing of like, I'm not getting anything back for all the effort I'm putting into it, so it doesn't seem worth it
Mm-hmm.
to me. So extrinsic goals could be winning a DLC. It could be a specific place. It could be this kind of higher external goal. It's not something that's internal to me that I'm growing. It's something I'm out externally seeking.
Okay.
Winning that championship, winning that DLC, winning that 1K, things like that are considered extrinsic goals, which aren't inherently negative, but we need to have really good intrinsic goals, right? My like for me, like my DLC intrinsic goal is make sure I'm making really smart ink choices because I can tend to ink things I need mid game, early game. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
okay, I'm gonna ink that card and be like, oh, wish I didn't ink that card 2 turns
Yep.
ago,
Yep.
and then
We've all been
not make.
there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, that is key to this game of especially how tight the play lines are right now. But that's a whole nother conversation for a
Yeah.
whole nother
Yeah.
time. One mistake, unfortunately, with the current meta can be a game loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, so setting those intrinsic goals. So, like for me, it was the ink, and then on the other end of the spectrum, for me, it's the try not to make a silly misplays, like other misplays where you just like. For me, a silly misplay is uh, not knowing how much ink I have and thinking I can play more cards than I can.
Yeah.
Or like I went to a recent 8K in Michigan, Glass City Gaming, their 8K, and I put a
Yeah.
Monstro on board, and I was like, "Let me attack," and they're like, "I have nothing exerted." I'm like, "That's true, you don't."
Yep. Yep. We've all
Good,
been there
good
too.
talk.
So, yeah.
So like those type of goals, the goals that we can be actionable right now, because also I also want to lay out like that dinging in our brain, that kind of feel good, or that serotonin release that we get from like hitting those goals, even as match to match, game to game, or even in our practice, match to match, game to game, really is a reinforcer for us to do it. It tells our brain, oh, I'm getting something from this. I like this. This is good. It is the intrinsic goal that kind of help push us through, because again, if we don't have that extrinsic goal met, because it's usually those are higher, bigger goals,
Mm-hmm.
that can lead to like a really big burnout feeling. And I'm sure that as people go, maybe even yourself, as you progress in your competitive play, you've maybe leaned a little more into those extrinsic goals versus the intrinsic goals, because those intrinsic feel a little less uh, higher level per se.
Yeah, yeah. It's super easy to do that too. I'm definitely you're right. I'm guilty of that kind of thing too, and it's hard because you do want to be like outwardly successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much easier to say, but to put more stock in that kind of thing than,
Yeah.
I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to improve this thing about myself. Then it's like, you feel cool and you feel great about it, but nobody else may notice it. So, I get it. The external validation piece is huge. Yeah.
But finding a balance. I'm not just sit here and say like, never have those higher goals that are more extrinsic. I'm saying that needs to be a balance of intrinsic. Even if for content creators, like, oh, I want to spend a little time learning a new editing software, a new tool, or try a different thing in my editing, like, and try to master that thing, because like that's an intrinsic goal, right? Like it's not going to necessarily get you more views, or it's more
Mhm.
for you to learn and you to grow. Those are things that keep us invested, keep us going. Um, uh, on a day-to-day basis, and really provides that, again, that like kind of like great chemical ding in our brain, but also just like the energy to keep moving forward, that kind of that energy out versus energy in thing. That's
Mhm.
the energy in part, is that. And I think that can be really valuable, setting those small goals, even if it's a match to match goals, even for our really elite players. Setting match to match goals is super important, and not just like I want to win every match 2-0 everyone. Like that's an extrinsic. Like what
Yeah.
intrinsic part are you trying to do in this match? Is it to be more mindful? Is it to be more engaging? Is it to be more communicative? Whatever that goal might be, set it, and that can be really helpful pushing us towards success.
Makes
And
sense. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that also leads me into like just the pacing part, right? Because like you said, like people are trying to cram games, but what they fail to realize is pacing's important. How the human brain kind of functions in some ways is a right around an hour to an hour and a half, just depending on the person, of really focused attention,
Hmm.
and then we need at least 10 to 15 minutes of breaks. You know, we all wonder why rounds are 50 minutes because that's when our brain starts to break down. And I
Yep.
don't know if any of if you personally have ever studied or tried to like learn things. Your brain. You ever done that thing where like you're trying to study and trying to learn, but after a while, like you read the same line 7 times and it's
Yep.
just not computing.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
just not sticking. Yep.
and because that's what our brain does. Our brain really has this because we have the kind of stages of focused attention, and the focused attention we're using for like studying and or playing this game is one of the highest levels of focus and attention we can. And our brain doesn't like to do that all the time.
Yep.
So we sometimes can burn ourselves out because we're not giving ourselves appropriate breaks. Even in our play testing, play for an hour, step off for a few minutes, move your body a little bit if you can, hydrate, make sure you're eating good
Hmm.
food, really taking that break and that recovery model, because this comes from like a cognitive behavioral recovery model of like understanding your body. And everyone's body's a little bit different what they can manage, but like if you're burning your brain out and not giving it appropriate recovery, you're going to build more frustration because you're going to make more errors. You're going to repeat those errors, which is going to make you feel more frustrated. And then, I don't know if you've ever experienced that where you hit that quicksand and you start making more errors, and then the more you
Yep.
feel like you struggle, the more you're sinking down.
Yep.
So like I think again in that, like being realistic with your body and understanding what your body needs, and understanding that like if you sat down and you're grinding games for over an hour without a break, you're probably not getting quality reps in, you're just getting quantity at that point.
Hmm.
And this can be a quality, you can get great testing and great practice in just with quality and not always quantity.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I like that you kind of mentioned the whole like physical aspect of it
Oh yeah.
too. Like, staying hydrated, staying, eating good foods, because it's so easy to go to these big events and get, halfway through the day and realize that you've had like, 1 8-ounce glass of water the entire day. And it's like, why do
In
I
a half of
feel
Snickers.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, why do I feel so bad? I'm
Mhm.
I'm making mistakes. I feel drained, and it's interesting to hear, like I've talked to some other folks before,
Mhm.
and they've talked about their routines, like for going to these DLCs, they keep a water bottle with them. They
Yep.
have healthy snacks, a lot of protein heavy kind of things, that aren't like
Mm.
super fatty, super sugary, to be able to keep themselves going and
Mhm.
feed their brain the right way.
Well, 100%. You got to think about what's going on in your brain during these events, right? You have that high level of focus and attention. Then on top of that, you have your stress hormones that hit, which is like your cortisol and your
Hmm.
adrenaline, and that takes you on like a chemical in your brain roller coaster, right? And then we have the crash after it's gone, and maybe we get serotonin because we win, and maybe we don't, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, now 10 minutes later, sit down and do it again for all day long. And like if we're not refueling with like proteins and healthy like micronutrient dense things, and drinking water and really hydrating, keeping our body as like I will continue to say, as athletes continuing to fuel our bodies appropriately,
Hmm.
we're going to crash. And when that crash happens, it can be devastating, whether it be like more of a tilt, like this like response, or this kind of just like I got nothing and we're making all these misplays, and then we had a bad day of testing, like that. You can walk away from that, because we usually walk away from that when it leads to burnout, because we buried ourselves, we didn't stop. And I know
Hmm.
I'm guilty of that. I don't know if you've had the experience where you're just like, no, I'm gonna not leave this until I win 3 or do this. And like I know I've had that experience. I don't know if you have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like we were saying, I mean, it's a competitive thing. It's a game. You want to
Mm-hmm.
win, right? You want to you want to succeed at playing the game. And so, yeah, it can be really easy to fall into those kind of traps, and and just keep the cycle going. So
Oh
without
yeah.
like prioritizing, psychological wellness, and you
Oh
know,
yeah, and then like
yeah.
even like I love how you mentioned earlier about the team aspect because I'm not advocating. I'm not on a team, and I'm not advocating everyone to go join teams if they
Mhm.
want to be competitive. But like there is a social aspect of that we can forget,
Yep.
right? We can forget like some of those teams while they're playing, they're laughing, they're engaging, they're having fun with each other a little bit. It's not all serious. I mean, I'm sure it has some level of serious, but they are enjoying each other. So there's that social aspect that allows the game to be fun because it's kind of like hanging out with
Hmm.
friends, laughing and having fun. But so if you're at home kind of grinding games, right, whether platforms you particularly play on, like that is an isolating thing, and that can feel like,
Hmm.
again, all of those things can lead to burnout. So really taking that holistic wellness part, really looking at kind of the aspect of like setting those small goals as well as making sure you're connected to this community. That's the thing that drew me in. I don't know about you, but the thing that drew me in the most was this how great this community is.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, and it's really cool that it's got kind of the whole spectrum of people, right? There's the people that want to be competitive. They want to
Mm-hmm.
drive themselves. They want to set those high goals, and get out there and win those games. But then there's also the people that want to play, puppy decks and and princess decks or whatever.
Well,
It's
don't tell the competitors right now that the puppy deck is not doing well because
yeah.
last time I saw that had one of the highest conversion rate to day two or something of that nature.
It's funny how well the puppies do. It's interesting, but yeah, no, it's really cool. And I haven't been a part of other TCG communities myself either,
Yeah.
so I don't know for sure if this is the case in others. But from what I've kind of gathered, it's kind of a unique situation.
Mm.
To have that wide, diverse range of people that do, it's not like you have to be competitive in it, or you have to
No.
be like this hardcore player. You could just pick it up and play it whenever you want to, and go hang out
Mhm.
at locals. I know there's lots of people that go to their locals sometimes, and they're just there to hang out. Like they go, maybe play some pack rush, or just to see folks. And it's
No.
definitely more of a social experience than it is competitive kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even my first, DLC I went to, like that was the vibe there too. With a lot of people, it was like, hey, I'm not going to be at that top table. I'm just here to meet people, talk, and
Hmm.
I think those are some of my funnest matches. Let's sit down and just
Yeah.
kind of like we're chatting it up, and we're just kind of like we're obviously paying attention, taking it serious, but like just the community piece was so powerful, and I think that's what really got me to stick here in this community and really has me caring and wanting to do the things that I do regarding mental health stuff is that piece is just like this community is so great and full of just such a wide range of great people that I want to make sure that everyone's able to kind of manage those emotions and kind of make sure that they stay in the community.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's so easy to get on the negative side of things, and I know that was kind of one of the things that you had touched on in some of your notes. The
Mm-hmm.
like the negative thought patterns that we can kind of get ourselves into and get kind of wrapped up in, and so tell me a little bit about that. Kind of maybe some of the things that people can do if they kind of find themselves in that kind of a situation. Some things to
Yeah.
think about.
So how that comes from this kind of cognitive approach to our thoughts, right? A lot of times we have any thought, and they just come in our head, and we believe them instantly. We're like, okay,
Hmm.
this is blue, okay, it's blue, and we don't stop and ever challenge them or even look at them. And what I want to tell people is we have also this belief that we have to be hard on ourselves, but research really shows that incentivization actually is more effective than kind of punishment oriented perspectives. So, asking yourself, is my self talk punishment oriented or is it reinforcement oriented or kind of this kind of carrot and the stick oriented? So,
Hmm.
you're really identifying those irrational negative thoughts like that. If I didn't win, I'm a terrible player.
Right.
I'm terrible at this game. No, you're not. You had a bad game. There's variance. Like I think we mentioned earlier, like the play lines are super tight. This meta is hard to draw your way out of a bad mulligan. This meta is hard to. When your partner looks at you and goes Daisy, 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 and you're like, that was a good game. That was fun for you.
Nightmare scenario.
Daisy, Daisy, Daisy.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, you won with 2 ink. That's great. But like that's part of this game. The play lines are so tight, and when people's openers can be like so bricky or so win oriented, like I think we have to really be grounded ourselves and say, like, what can I take away from this game? And if I'm beating myself up, what am I doing? I'm really driving myself down and really reframing those thoughts to, I lost this game and I suck, to, okay, what did I do wrong, but what did I do right in this game? Because again, sometimes what can actually happen, I don't know if you've had the experience, you do 90% right in the game and then slap that monstro down and be like, I've lost because I made that error.
Yep.
So I think that's the key, is we discount the 90 to only highlight the kind of 10% that we might have done wrong. So it's kind of reframing that and looking at that and saying, am I the suckiest player? No. Where's the evidence to support that? Questioning those thoughts, because we don't do that. We don't question, like, is that a real thought? Because we're upset. So again, engage with your thoughts. Be curious about them. If you're making negative self-evaluations, ask yourself, where's that coming from? Ask it if it's even true. I mean, literally in your head, is that really true? Do I really suck? No, I don't suck. It's just I made that mistake and I'm frustrated at myself. Right there's a reframe, and it can spiral into the next match, and then we're down and out in the next match, which then we're going to ruin the whole experience because we beat ourselves up. You know, and again, I'm not saying that's an easy tool to do, but like being able to catch that, reframe that, and even question those thoughts, it can be super powerful in our kind of reframing those kind of negative self-beliefs.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and it is an easy cycle to get into, especially if, you're losing game after game after game, I mean, it's one of those things that it's like, I'm sure there's some people listening that are like, that's easier said than done, Oh. I think 100%. we've all been there, but yeah, it's something that I agree. I mean, I think it's hugely important to make sure that you are keeping that right frame of mind. Because I've been there, I've been somebody who, you lose, I mean, I think at the last set champs, I won one game and it was like, I played terribly, sorry. I didn't do my best. I'm trying to practice it right here. So
I love it.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard, and especially like we said, this is a lot of people's first TCG. And so a lot of these things, these feelings, these situations are new, and, and it's constantly changing because as the community constantly grows too.
And I think you're right there. And I leaned into, I'm gonna age myself as well as nerdify myself really fast and say, in Star Trek, Captain Picard did tell Data that you can make all the right moves and still lose when they were playing chess. And like that is so true even in this space. You can have a bad matchup, you can have variance. There's so many factors. And what's more important is grounding ourselves in our strengths, reframing those negative belief systems into something that's going to be productive. Maybe that is setting a small goal. Maybe it is like, okay, I misplayed, and guess what? I am never going to misplay that monstro again. Trust me, I am never going to misplay the monstro again, because every time it's my hand, I'm going to pay more attention. That's the reframe we're talking about. It doesn't have to be this 180 degree of like, make it all power, sunshine and rainbows. But it can be that reframe of just like, I'm not doing that again. I'm going to make sure I don't, and setting that small goal. And so these skills we kind of talk about today can all kind of compound together to kind of create a pretty cool, experience for any level of competitor.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so if somebody has crossed that line and they do get into that burnout area, what kind of things can they do to kind of, not necessarily like lift themselves out of it, but just kind of move forward, I guess?
The two big things is at first, again, set those small goals, look into having fun. If you still want to like play, you're still in a place where I want to play, I want to do the mechanics, pull out those puppy decks, bring some friends over, engage in a fun, re-spark that fun and engaging. Maybe have a theme deck night with your friends, or find, if there's, in my area, there's a locals that's a more casual play and they have theme decks. Go to that, enjoy the community, have that experience. Because again, what'll happen is that'll ding that feel good part of your brain, leading you to kind of have this positive association with it. But if it's real bad, you need a break. That break might be a couple of days. but make those productive days. And what I mean by that is taking care of your body, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your physical health. Maybe instead of cramming 10 games of Lorcana, 15 games of Lorcana, maybe I go for a walk that day. Or if I can't go for a walk because of physical limitations, maybe I do some kind of physical movement of my body for 15 to 20 to 30 minutes, and kind of get that serotonin released in my brain again, and making sure I'm eating healthy and getting great, good 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I know people like, that can be hard. And hydrate, like take care of yourself and take the time that you were going to invest into playing, into like recovering and recouping yourself and being kind of gentle with yourself. And usually what you'll find is if you do that for a few days, take care of yourself, you're going to find that maybe approaching that deck again or that game again might feel a little bit different. But again, be in tune, because if you do and you start to feel that kind of stress spike again, you got to go through the same process and really be aware of kind of where you are so you don't bury yourself.
Yep. And it's too easy. Speaking from experience, it's too easy when you get to that point to like, it's like, oh, okay, I realize I'm kind of, past the limit here. I'm kind of in that burnout zone. It seems like, at least from my personal experience, it's a lot easier to just distract yourself rather than take care of yourself. It's like, I just want to find things to fill my time so that I'm not thinking about this other thing, thinking about actually working through things.
I was saying there's not a single person that's ever stayed up too late watching TV to distract themselves and they didn't take care of themselves in some way. And it was literally like, oh, I should have went for a walk, or I should have done this instead of sitting there watching TV. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I know I am. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I know I am.
Yep. Well, and one of the nice things is that, if you get out and go take a walk, you can listen to some fine Lorcana podcasts,
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of great minds in the community.
Yeah. Well, and like we were saying, the social play aspect of it, the different sides of it, social and competitive, for, each side and everything in between, there's content out there that's like that. Oh. You'll have the hardcore, videos doing deck lists and, matches and, talking about, day one deck lists and everything. And then you've got people that are like, I played against Enchanted Kim on Brando's channel a little while back, and she played queens and villains, and I played princesses, and it was just, just fun, and to be able to have that kind of content out there to consume, that's relative to your involvement in the game, is nice. And to being able to multitask with them, like with a podcast,
100%. And I think, even things like the Ursula's Quest, like that'd be, still playing the game, but like it's a totally different feel, right? Or I always say the Jafar one. It's like Jafar's Heist.
Wait, I kind of forget. Yeah. No, it's something like that. Oh my gosh.
It's close. It's close.
Well, now I got to look. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, keep going.
But yeah, I think that's just the key, is like shifting that, again, investing in ourselves and our well-being, because again, the more we do that, the more we put ourselves, it's kind of this recovery model, right? What I mean by that is this: if I whack myself in the face and give myself a bloody nose, I'm gonna have to put some ice on that, and I might not be able to like breathe out of my nose great for a day or two, but if I ignore it, it's not going to get better. I'm going to sit there and be kind of like owie.
Yeah.
So, but if I take care of it quickly and with some intention, right? If you replace the nose with an emotional state, if I approach it quickly with an intention, it can heal faster and we can get back doing the things we want to do again. And I think that is a great approach to kind of look at this. Like, because sometimes we get caught up in like the layers of mental health. I'm like, well, approach it like you would an injury. Give it love, support, and care. And the more you do that, usually, not always, but usually that leads to quicker recoveries.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really easy to forget that it's all, it's all connected, it's all part of the same body. And just because it's, mental and it's not like a physical thing, like you broke a bone or something, that it's harder to like conceptualize treating it the same way, like you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's so well said. And I think, you're right in the money there. And I think, as a community, we could be that for each other. And Definitely. I see that in some ways. I see when people are struggling, people come over and put their arm around them. Like, I just think I think that's such a great, obviously, if you want people to touch you, obviously,
Well,
but
yeah, of course. Yeah.
but like that's the piece. Like that's why I love this community so much, and it's just so great because we have so many people who just care, and I think
Hmm.
that even sparks people's interest in my content, and even you wanting me to come on here is like because you care and you don't like to see people in this community get burnout or suffer, and I think that is coming from such a great, like an amazing and commendable place.
Well, we all want everybody to be okay, right? As
Mhm.
much as possible. So I'm curious. Okay, from your perspective, mentally speaking, and getting prepared for it, or getting what kind of recommendations would you have for someone who, especially being new to TCGs,
Mhm.
and maybe doesn't have a good like solid support system locally or anything like that? How and what kind of things do you think they can do to like mentally prepare if they want to go to a DLC or a larger event?
I think first reaching out to, Facebook can be terrible in some ways, but it also can be great in some ways. So reaching out to Facebook groups, who's going, trying to make some plans to meet up with people in groups and because, I've even seen on some of the things that I'm a part of, like, hey, we're all going out to dinner here at this time. Like, who wants to go? And like, so we all can feel connected and feel like a part.
Hmm.
And then as we prep to go, I think finding strategies to manage our emotions effectively, whether it be a particular grounding skills. There's tons of different ones. There's internal ones where we focus in on the body, but that's not great for some people. And sometimes it's this external, like visual part, and sometimes it's even a tactile of like touching and feeling things. So explore what grounding skills work for you, because what grounding skills do is basically just take this level of anxiety or stress and just decrease it a few levels. Because again,
Hmm.
some of it's going to be natural. You're going to a place where you don't know many people. It's big, it's loud, it's overstimulating to some extent. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever heard 3,000 people moving the cards back and forth, but it
Oh my
it
gosh. It's
it
so loud.
is so loud. And that can be overstimulating itself. So having those skills already in place, the worst place to try to learn them is in the moment. So having
Hmm.
them in place, practice, knowing what works for you, is going to be really important. What grounding skills, because again, stepping out, grounding ourselves down a little bit, or even before we go in, lowering that level because of distress. Because again, we go from zero, think about 0 to 10. If I'm entering the day at a 7 and then one thing happens, I'm at 10 already. Like versus
Yeah.
if I've entered the day
Yeah.
at 4 and I can, that's a lot of room to wiggle between there. Um, and then I think to take the next step is, so we have a community step, we have a kind of grounding step, and I think the next is really being developing a really good pre-game and between game ritual.
Hmm.
I really recommend before anyone plays 15 to 20 minutes of some form of movement. Again, releases that serotonin. It can be calming. And then, also any kind of grounding or mindfulness based activity, depending on your body. And again, you know, please reach out to your providers or your medical professionals on what's specifically right for your body. And then the last is like that, between game rituals of moving your body, eating. We talk about things of that nature. So having that structure already built in before we even get there. Okay, between games, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to drink some water. I'm going to eat this snack. I'm going to walk around, because they're using these big halls, right? And you can just kind of walk around where the vendors are
Hmm.
at, and move your body and kind of clear your head. And maybe during that walk, you're also doing a grounding skill you use. Like, wow, it's crammed it all in there, and then preparing myself for the next match. And I think that in itself. So the pregame and during game rituals, and then the grounding skills is probably my biggest, strongest advice for most people,
Hmm.
is to get those things kind of really solid for yourself and practice those before you even get there.
Yeah, definitely. Because it can be super overwhelming. So,
And for people that have gone to a few, I'm sure even you like probably have a between match and before you go in ritual that we're not even like 100% aware of, but like you just naturally do it because it's your ritual. But
hmm.
making that intentional is important.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that like by the end of the day on the first day, it was like it was too much overstimulation. It was just like I had my earbuds and I would put them in between and try to silence some of it, but it's just a lot. And I know there's a lot of people that are that way too. They love the game, they love playing the game, they being there and actually having the one-on-one social aspect. But with the larger crowd, it just gets to be a lot. And it makes me wonder, given this game and given how, I don't know, just saying nice doesn't really just, hit it right. But, it seems like that it might be something in the future to where they have a space that people can go decompress. Maybe you have the main hall and then you have a conference room across the hall. That's like the lights are lower, it's got like some places to sit, it's that would be, I could see a lot of people in the community appreciating that kind of thing happening. So.
I would absolutely love a morning of but obviously that same space for between rounds and in the day, but a morning of like wake up with mindfulness activity. Like we go in the room and people it's quiet, low, and we do like a guided meditation and some stretching and moving your body just to get our bodies in a relaxed state to enter into play. Mm-hmm. That would be like a dream for me for those DLCs, and that would be I think be super helpful just for the community. Like you said, like it's a wide spectrum of people. Sometimes in that environment, people thrive and that large and a lot of stimulus, but like that's overwhelming. So like knowing your body, knowing you need, and in even like actively having a plan. Okay, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna do this between rounds so I can again know where I'm at on that kind of scale from 0 to 10. Because the more we get to that 10, the more it's gonna be a negative experience for ourselves, and try to keep ourselves roughly between that 5 and 6 range throughout the day is going to be key, so we don't kind of really crash and burn.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, I hear stories of even like, the hardcore competitive players, they get into these upper level matches and, you watch the streams and they're just, they're kind of playing, they're serious about it. It's like, but then you don't see the after, right? I forget who it was exactly. Somebody was telling me a story about one of the players, and it was like the top 5, matches, or whatever that top level was. And they basically, once they finished, they won. But once they finished, they scooped their cards and grabbed everything and bolted out the door, because they needed that level of decompression to be able to go out and be away from people, because despite them looking like super calm and super collected and everything, it's hard to remember sometimes that even those people, the experienced people, the high level players, they still feel the same stuff,
Oh, 100%. It's a shared experience, because you actually have to have a certain level of kind of stimulus, like, or anxiety level, to actually hit peak performance. Like it has to actually be there. If we're actually just 0 on that scale per se, we actually underperform, and research shows that we underperform there. So they are experiencing anxiety, they are experiencing these things. And as a trained mental health provider, sometimes I'm like, I can see the tells. I'm like, I can see that. I can see that. Like this is in my head. I'm like, this would be a great time to put your cards down and take one great kind of big diaphragmatic breath and let it out. But they don't usually do that. And they're not listening to me while I'm watching them, obviously. But I'm like, that would be great for you right now to take that kind of like rescued diaphragmatic breath. But that's just, I can't turn the therapist's brain off. I try my best if I can.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's part of, part of who you are. So, and I'm sure, walking around every day, it's like a constant thing. You constantly say, oh, okay, well, that person's doing that, or, that's how they're handling this situation, or, so.
Yeah. You have that a little bit, but I think it just comes from like the compassion. I think that's the one thing that, like, I think again is congruent for me and my identity is like, I'm a compassionate, caring person that really wants people to succeed. And I think that's why I like this community, because I feel the same. I mean, yeah, you got some of your more competitive people that can be a little bit more serious in certain situations, but like that's not even been my personal experience of even playing with those individuals. Like I said it in a few different clips, but like my first ever match at my first DLC was DKP, like round 1. game one.
That's not intimidating at all.
Not even a little. And a
Yeah.
great guy, super nice, super friendly.
Oh yeah.
And then like I walked into my locals the very first day I was playing my first local competition or league night per se,
Hmm.
and there's like R&B and Humble from Team Maelstrom sitting there, and I'm like, oh gosh. So like, but like again, super friendly, super helpful. Like talked to me about game theory and actually like taught me a lot about game theory. I'm like, oh, it's just not about putting this card down and turning it sideways. There's a strategy to this thing. So
What are you? I thought that was the strategy, the whole point of the game.
I mean, there's certain decks. I mean, like that triple daisy. That's about
Yes, as somebody, you said that earlier, and I
Mhm.
kind of like held off, but yeah, I did actually win a game by doing triple daisies. So
It's
I think I ended up winning by like turn 4 or something.
yeah,
It was ridiculous.
it's hard. And then on turn 4, you slap the body card down. It's like, all right, that's even
Yep,
better.
yep, yep, yep.
uh,
Well, cool. Well, hey, Josh, thank you so much for sharing all this. I really appreciate it. I found it helpful, if nothing else. I hope somebody else out there listening has found some helpful little tidbits in here. Um, and I really appreciate you, relating it back to the game. I know,
mhm,
that's one thing. Like, it's one thing to go read about mental health,
mhm.
stuff and things, practices that you can do to kind of deal with things as they come in your life. But to have it applied back to this context has been perfect. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you giving me space to kind of ramble on at some points. One thing I know about myself is I really nerd out about this stuff, and it's like a big passionate area of mine. So I know sometimes I can feel like I'm just word vomiting. So I'm working on that as a content creator and as a human being to not do that. But like I really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to your audience and allow um, uh, your audience to kind of maybe have some pick up one or two helpful tips from this, and hopefully I can help them kind of have a great experience as well as maybe more success.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. Yep. Well, all right. I want to end with these same last 4 questions that I ask everybody. So we will start with your favorite ink and card right now.
Ooh,
Or
right
you can
now.
show the card that you showed me earlier if you would like.
So my favorite card of all time is this one. It's my only graded card, and it's Gustav the Giant, a 3 drop
Nice.
6/6 that comes in exerted and re-readies when you've challenged another character. I was a Ruby Steel believer through most of the metas, even back when Bucky was a meta and I was playing pick a fight so I could kill Bucky.
Yep.
Um, and I love this card because there's nothing better than your opponent playing Ruby Amethyst, putting down Flynn and
Mhm.
Sisu, and you go Flynn Gustav. I win. Your card's smaller than mine. But I just always love this card. I really wish it would have been reprinted. I think in the current meta, it would have been really helped elevate Ruby Steel to a level that could have been pretty great because it's such a big
Mhm.
body, and body is really important. But my favorite ink color is Ruby, and I know it kind of got a little bit of the you know how they say they take a little off the top. I think we're got some Ruby male pattern baldness going on right
All right.
now. Hopefully, we'll get some treatment and get some nice locks growing back with Ruby, because I feel like it kind of got a little bit shaved a little close to the scalp there.
Well, I'm sure we'll all be prepared whenever that day comes.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Oh,
I
it's
had to
good.
slip it in. Sorry.
It's good.
All right. Second question. Favorite Disney movie and why?
Oh, favorite Disney movie.
You can have more than one. Some people say
I
two.
mean, as someone that's getting a little older, I do have a love for the original Robin Hood. I just do. It
Mhm.
has very nostalgic for me and my older brother watching it together, and I just I watched it recently, and it kind of somewhat still holds up to some extent. So like there's that, but to be honest, I do have 2 daughters, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say Frozen 1 and 2 or both.
Nice.
At
Nice.
first, I was like, and then I kind of loved them, and then I got burnt out. But then there's this secret soul love for that. So I would be remiss if I didn't say that is up there for me.
What you mean after the 10th time through in a row, you didn't really enjoy it?
I did a little pivoting with my own, some reframe. Here we go. Good.
Reframe. There we go.
Reframed my and encouraged myself to find new things in the film and maybe find some hidden Mickeys that in
Yeah.
kind of small goals. Look at we're tying it all in. Some small goals and some reframes. Then eventually we kind of got her over to the musical for a little bit, and that was kind of nice, refreshing. So
Okay.
we've done our tour of. And now I think, like most, we're on the some K-pop Demon Hunter repeats right now. So,
yep. As is like most of the world. So, I have boys, and they're still like constant with it. So,
oh, nice. I mean, hey, that's the one cool thing is like seeing the curiosity and like in the fun that form of media can bring to kids, and I think that's why. I mean. A lot of us are just nostalgic people that get pulled into this that aren't necessarily in the TCG world. So like that, I think that's a great thing.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Third question. Give a shout out to your LGS that you play at, or LGSs if you play it more than one.
Two I play at the most. One is Nerdy Needs here in Brandon, Florida, and the other one is Cool Stuff, and that is in Tampa, the Tampa location. Great people, great store, great. Never had an issue getting any kind of product, pre-orders, things of that nature. They've been a great. I'm actually working on one right now with one to do a guaranteed 1K at the Nerdy Needs store close to me after next release. So really trying to like expand and maybe donate some money to some charity from it, things of that nature. We're kind of working out the details, what that might look like, or just like even just donating to and doing more mental health awareness stuff around the event if we can't get like anything regarding donations to a charity. But like, that is my two places. They've been great. The communities there is great. We always have 14 plus people playing, so it's
nice.
It's always a great time.
Nice, cool. And I'll get links for those so we can put them in the show notes later. So,
definitely.
And speaking of links, tell people where they can find you and your content and podcasts and all that kind of good stuff.
Definitely. So you can find all my personal content at Dr. Lore TCG on Instagram, on X, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And then you can also start to find more content coming out very, very soon on those same platforms with Decked Out and Dialed In. And that's going to be coming out soon, more of a podcast-oriented conversation around mental health. So please give us a view and then let us know, again, even just commenting what content you want to see us talk about and address. That helps me out so much because there's so much I can talk about. And again, as I think I've demonstrated in this conversation, I can ramble at times about. Please let me know what you want to see, and I'll definitely try to my best to get that out for you all.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again, Josh. I really appreciate it. Had a great time talking with you. And yeah, we'll see you around the community.
Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening in on my conversation with Josh. Hopefully this episode provided you with some good food for thought when it comes to burnout, especially in the world of Lorcana. If you enjoyed the show and would like to find out more about the show and listen or watch other episodes, you can find out more at LorcanaChats.com. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can find us everywhere at LorcanaChats, or you can send an email to lorcanachats@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourselves out there. We'll see you next time.